The John Wick franchise introduces new characters in each movie, but there is a core group comprising the titular assassin, Winston, the manager of the Continental Hotel, and his concierge, Charon. This unforgettable character, played by the late Lance Reddick, offers a comforting presence with his gentlemanly demeanor in a world filled with the deadliest of criminals and assassins. He is also one of the few that John can trust blindly, and the movies have built up this character to be a crucial part of the hitman's missions. In this video, we will bring you everything there is to know about this polite gentleman who is an invaluable asset for John Wick. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
It has been a pleasure, Mr. Wick.
Who is Charon, and what did he do before joining the Continental? The John Wick movies are infamous for keeping an air of mystery around the characters and not revealing too much detail about their backstory. It's no exception for Charon, and he appears in the very first John Wick movie when John seeks shelter in the Continental Hotel. He is soon established as the right-hand man of Winston and shown to shoulder all major responsibilities in the running of the hotel. He meets the guests and allots them their rooms and takes care of their subsequent requirements. We aren't told what he did before becoming a part of the Continental, but the comic book throws some light in this regard. The prequel comic series establishes John Wick and Charon as old acquaintances, and the hitman actually saves his life when Charon is attacked by assassins. After being saved, Charon promises John that he would help him whenever he so requires in life, and that he owes John a life debt. However, there are many parts of the comic series that don't really add up to things in the movie universe, and it wouldn't be appropriate to call it strictly canonical. From the way Charon respects and readily helps John in the movies, it can be assumed that they go back a long way. We have learned through subsequent movies that becoming a part of the Continental Hotel management requires some special skills and sacrifices, and Charon must have gone through all of that at some point in his life. He has probably risen through the ranks of the underworld, and there is a good chance that he was an assassin at some point, going by his shooting skills. It's not clear if he belonged to any particular crime family, but his association with Winston is a special one, and there is a chance that he did something drastic to earn his trust and become his right-hand man. There is also a theory that believes that many of the assassins and people like Winston and Charon were previously part of the armed forces before they took up this life. The tattoo on John Wick's back hints at a past life as a Marine, and if this is indeed true, Charon could have served alongside him. Clearly, there's an element of discipline and professionalism in his character that can explain an army background. Besides, serving together would also explain the special friendship and mutual admiration between the two.
I'm here to see Santino d'Antonio.
Charon's relevance in the entire John Wick timeline explored. He may have been a side character, but Charon's importance in the franchise can never be undermined. After John Wick emerges out of his retirement following the killing of his puppy by the son of a Russian mob boss, he decides to check into the Continental Hotel. This is where we first see Charon, who immediately welcomes John upon his arrival. Their first interaction proves that they are old acquaintances, and there was a time when Charon was quite familiar with the ruthless antics of John. Later in the movie, John returns to the hotel after being severely injured and bloodied, and he requests Charon for a doctor to stitch him up. He readily obliges, but laments the lack of a good enough laundry service to fix the ripped and bloodied clothing. He suggests bourbon to ease the pain, and his composed mannerisms prove that he has seen such cases countless times in his career. This all-weather friend of John Wick will certainly not be bothered by a minor inconvenience such as an injury or a little blood. When an assassin attacks John inside his hotel room, the hitman has to take down the attacker, and this causes quite a ruckus. Other hotel guests complain to Charon, who immediately tries to make sure that everything's alright. He is assured when John informs him that the uninvited guest has been dealt with. Charon also hands out new car keys to the hitman as compensation from the management for his unpleasant experience in the hotel, and needless to say, John makes good use of this mean machine to track down the Russian crime lord. In John Wick Chapter 2, the mission requirements force John to find a safe place for his dog as he goes about his business. He heads to the Continental Hotel and assigns the custody of his pit bull to his ever-dependable friend. Charon agrees to care for the dog, even though it is against the hotel policies. Charon also tactfully interacts with Santino d'Antonio, John's sworn enemy in the movie, and turns a blind eye to John's darling killing of Santino on the hotel premises later on. He returns John's dog and even escorts him to Central Park for a meeting with Winston, where he seems happy that John is given a head start before being declared excommunicado by Winston as per the rules of the High Table. table. He also doesn't forget to let John know what a pleasure it was working with him before bidding him one final goodbye. The third movie in the franchise might best explore the true potential of Charon as a character, and we also get to witness his fighting skills for the first time. After an excommunicado John Wick is sought by hordes of assassins, Charon seems to be hopeful about his survival, and finds relief when Winston reinstates his faith in the legendary hitman's abilities. Later in the movie, John is cornered by one of the assassins named Zero, but he somehow manages to touch the pavement outside the Continental, which is technically Continental premises. Charon is quick to remind the assassin about the rule of no violence on the hotel premises, even though John has been declared excommunicado. His threat is effective enough, and it saves John's life for the time being. The most defining moment of the movie comes when John Wick decides to fight for Winston in order to protect the Continental Hotel from the invading High Table mercenaries. Winston had ignored the warnings of the adjudicator, who wanted him to step down from his charges, and as punishment, a large force is sent out to eliminate him. Charon joins forces with John, and we see the duo making good use of the vast guns and ammunition resources in taking down the attackers. The hard-fought battle results in a victory for them, and Charon goes along with Winston and John Wick for the truce negotiations with the adjudicator. When a shocking twist has Winston seemingly shooting John to win back the trust of the High Table, Charon acknowledges that it was a very smart move. However, he was quite aware that the whole thing was just a charade to deceive the High Table temporarily, and he knew that John was somewhere safe and sound. After such a crucial role in John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, we expected no less than a major role for Charon in the new movie, but that was not to be. Did Charon deserve a better ending than his fate in John Wick Chapter 4? If you haven't watched the new release, beware of a few spoilers in the following parts. The new John Wick movie has surprisingly little for Charon's character, and this might be slightly disappointing for the fans. Previously, Winston had dared to show his defiance by fighting off the High Table, and Charon, along with John Wick, racked up quite the body count comprising of the assassins and soldiers sent out by the organization. The High Table is not an organization that forgives or forgets, and it was an easy assumption that they would hit back hard. In John Wick Chapter 4, the High Table has also learned about the treachery in Winston's shooting attempt and how he enabled John to escape under the guise of those shots fired at him. The adjudicator had already warned Winston about the consequences of this betrayal, and the High Table stays true to their word. Winston and Charon are summoned by Marquis de Gramont after the former is ordered to step down from his responsibilities. They vacate the hotel premises and head off to meet Gramont, who demolishes the hotel in front of their eyes. After stating that Winston is no longer the manager of the Continental, he pulls out his gun and shoots Charon in the wink of an eye, suggesting that Winston will not be needing a concierge any longer. This is a shocking moment, as the fans have to watch one of the most beloved characters die helplessly. Even in his dying moments, Charon retains the calmness, composure, and formal demeanor that defines him, and manages to mutter what an honor it was to serve Winston before breathing his last. His death is quite an impactful event in terms of the movie, because some of the decisions made by characters like Winston and John are based on their loyalty towards their old friend. Winston is determined to make the High Table pay for this misadventure, and Marquis Vincent de Gramont essentially signs his own death warrant after killing John Wick's dear friend needlessly. It is following the death of Charon that Winston comes up with the idea of John challenging Vincent to a duel, although it might have been his grieving, vengeful mind doing the thinking here. That being said, personally, we would have loved to see Charon go out after putting up a good fight. He has previously proven that he's no dud with a gun, and it would have been a gallant exit if he died protecting Winston or John and took down a bunch of the assassins before falling. He was offered a rather tame death, where the man didn't even have a chance to fight back and was killed by one of the most cowardly and disgusting villains in the John Wick franchise. It was one of the most tragic moments in the movie, and the scene also served as a painful reminder of the real world, where Lance Reddick passed away just before the premiere of John Wick 4. What makes Charon's relationship with Winston and John Wick so special? A man who is a thorough professional but also has a personal touch in his actions is always a lovable character, and that is exactly the case with Charon. He goes about his business like clockwork, but when it comes to John Wick, he seems to have a soft spot for the man and allows him certain privileges. He is always happy to help him out, even if his requirements are not exactly from the rule books of the Continental. For instance, he decides to keep his dog in the second movie, even though the hotel did not allow pets. He mentions that he took took the pit bull in as a personal favor to John, and in the end, he hands back the dog without the slightest of complaints. He has always been a well-wisher for John Wick, and it reflects in his actions. It is the same for Winston as well, and although the manager of the Continental is technically Charon's superior, there is an underlying friendship that defines their equation. He could have escaped from the Continental when the assassins and mercenaries of the High Table came to destroy the facility and kill Winston, but Charon chose to stand his ground and fight alongside John Wick. He always did more than what his role required, and his powerful screen presence has much to do with this aspect of the character. The friendship between Charon and Winston is made evident in the recent release, where Winston made out a specialized epitaph for Charon after his death. In fact, he clearly admits that Charon was a friend to him more than anything else, and these special relationships add the much-needed human touch to the movie's killing frenzy.
Much has changed during your time away.
Like what?
Well, let us say they have made armor.
What makes Charon such a powerful ally of John Wick? Looks can be deceptive, and we wouldn't blame you for thinking less of this man who stands at the reception of the Continental Hotel in New York. The more you watch the movies, the more you realize the impact and influence that Charon has on the narrative. The man is much more than just an assistant to Winston, and it is quite clear that he has a great thinking head on his shoulders. He knows how to communicate with a few words, and there are times when he simply lets his eyes do the talking. He's aware of every nook and cranny of the Continental Hotel, and he also keeps track of everything that unfolds in the assassin underworld, even though he is inside the hotel premises almost all the time. Charon is also a pretty badass fighter, as we find out when he teams up with John Wick and takes down the finest of assassins sent out by the High Table. Their victory is so convincing that the adjudicator, who previously ordered their execution, is forced to invite Winston to a parley to settle things down. He proves himself to be swift and agile as he moves like a ninja through the hotel corridors and hunts down the killers. This fight sequence also establishes him as a crack shot, and he is absolutely at ease when it comes to handling firearms, even though he probably hasn't used them in a pretty long time. The scenes with Charon wielding an armor-piercing shotgun and shooting down the intruders will be remembered as one of the best shootouts of the entire franchise. The best quality of Charon is perhaps his reliability. Both Winston and John Wick love and respect him for his ability to shoulder responsibilities without complaining. Be it taking custody of John Wick's dog or managing the threats that surround the Continental, Charon knows how to take care of things. He is also a compassionate man who cares deeply for his friends, and he doesn't mind putting his life on the line for that. He takes his duties very seriously, and every aspect of his personality establishes the fact that one can rely on him for just about anything, and he would simply respond by saying, "Of course, sir."
I have you for 2 nights?
Depending on business, it may be more.
Of course, sir.
Exploring Charon's impressive personality and how Lance Reddick perfected the Kenyan accent for the role. Charon can be best described as the calm before the storm, the much-needed stability and balance in a world of chaos, anarchy, and killings. As the concierge of Winston and the Man Friday of Hotel Continental, his job requires him to be composed and polite all the time. However, this personality trait has almost become a part of the character, and he behaves the same way even when he's not indulging in formal business. Even when he has to forbid someone from doing something or warn some assassin to respect the rules of the Continental, he does so with classy elegance and a composed but firm voice. In this regard, the Kenyan accent used by Lance Reddick fits in perfectly, and there's a crazy story about how he perfected the accent. The late actor once revealed in an interview that when he first got the script, it was mentioned that he would have to use an African accent for the role. However, the movie role didn't specify which African accent he needed to master. As it turned out, Lance Reddick had been a part of a movie back in 2000, which was titled I Dreamed of Africa. For a role in this movie, the actor had practiced and perfected the Kenyan accent. He preserved his taped voices for all these years, and it came in handy when he was preparing for the role in John Wick. It's not surprising that such a dedicated actor aced the role of Charon and made it one of the most iconic characters in the franchise.
He was a good dog. I have enjoyed his company.
Will we see Charon in the John Wick spin-off projects? There's been some news of a few promising John Wick spin-off projects, and Charon's character is supposed to be a part of at least 2 of them. The spin-off movie, Ballerina, had started filming some time back, and Lance Reddick played the role before his death. We don't know for certain if the filming for his entire part was complete, but we sincerely hope that the makers retain his bit for the movie. It would be an emotional moment for the fans, who would get to see their beloved actor in this iconic role one last time. There's also a John Wick prequel series titled The Continental, which has been given the go-ahead, and a younger version of Charon will be seen there. Debutant Debutant actor Eomaid Adigun will have big shoes to fill as he will slip into the character of a young Charon and his stint with the Continental Hotel. We are excited about these upcoming projects because the stories can throw more in terms of the real origins of Charon, but there's no denying the fact that Lance Reddick has left an indelible mark on the franchise, and the upcoming movies and shows will never be the same without his presence. Do let us know in the comments below about your thoughts on this evergreen character and what you think about his real origins. Also, tell us your views on the new release and Charon's role in the movie. This has been Corey Whelan for Marvelous Videos. Have a good one, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.
Well played, sir.